Buckle up, fantasy fans, because Week 5 delivered a real haymaker. We're talking big injuries, big trades, big implications for your fantasy team.
Yeah, no kidding. We've got a lot to unpack, so let's jump right in.
Let's start with that London game. Rodgers going down, that was a heart stopper for a minute there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially with those ankle injuries. Always a tough one. But the early word is it's a low ankle sprain. Those don't usually keep guys out too long.
Okay, that's somewhat reassuring, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But you figure they're going to be cautious, right? Especially with the bye week coming up.
Definitely possible. Gives them a little extra time to heal up. Now, Aaron Jones, on the other hand, that hip injury is a bit more concerning.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Especially with how much those Vikings rely on him.
For sure. We'll want to see what that MRI says. Hip injuries can really mess with a running back's explosiveness and that cutting ability, the things that make Jones so dangerous in fantasy.
Exactly. So even if he suits up, it's not a guarantee he's back to his old self.
Exactly. We'll want to see him back at practice, mixing it up, before we feel good about starting him.
Okay, so keep an eye on those practice reports, everyone. London wasn't the only place where fantasy dreams took a hit this week. Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Big game, big touchdown, and then hamstring.
Yeah. Worst possible news. Hamstrings are so unpredictable. Could be a week, could be a month. Really a wait-and-see situation.
Music every fantasy owner hates to hear. So what should we be watching for with him?
Practice participation is key. If he's limited or out by Wednesday, that's not a good sign. You might need to start thinking about other options.
Man, brutal. Okay, so we've got Rodgers, Jones, Collins, all with question marks. Anything else we need to be worried about?
Well, Devon Achane left the game with a concussion, so that's definitely a concern.
Oh, right. Concussions are no joke. You never know how long those will linger.
Exactly. The Dolphins will take their time with that one for sure.
All right, so not a lot of good news on the injury front. Give me something positive to hold on to. What about Zach Moss and that ankle injury? Please tell me that wasn't as bad as it looked.
Okay, so there is a little bit of good news there. Early reports are saying it's not as serious as they initially thought. Still need to monitor it, but it sounds like he might have dodged a bullet.
Okay, well, that's something, right? Every little bit helps.
A lot of bumps and bruises this week, but hey, it wasn't all doom and gloom on the news front, right? We got to talk about this Davante Adams situation, trade request. What's going on there?
Oh, man, talking a bombshell. I swear every time I look at my phone, there's another crazy headline. At first, I thought it was all about that Antonio Pierce social media slip-up, right?
Yeah, everyone thought so, right? Pierce accidentally liking that post about trading Adams. Not exactly subtle.
Yeah, if you're going to be nosy on social media, maybe don't like the post suggesting you trade your star player.
Right. Bit of an awkward moment for everyone involved. But then Jay Glazer drops this report saying it might all be a big coincidence.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Spill the tea. What's Glazer saying?
So he's hearing that the trade request, it's not about the Pierce thing at all. It's about the Raiders' record. Seems like Adams isn't too thrilled about wasting his prime on a team that's not, well, winning.
Okay, so less about hurt feelings, more about a career move. Interesting. But are the Raiders really going to let him go? And if they do, where could he even end up?
$1 million questions, right. The rumor mill is working overtime on this one. The Giants make a lot of sense. They desperately need a true number one receiver, and with the way they're playing, they might be willing to pay up to make a real run at it this year.
Giants would definitely shake things up. Imagine him catching passes from Danny Dimes. That offense could be scary.
Right. But we got to remember, trading for a guy like Adams, it's not cheap. We're talking serious draft picks, maybe even players going the other way.
Yeah, no kidding. It'll be interesting to see who's willing to go all in. Speaking of shakeups, did you see the Jets fired Robert Saleh?
Yeah, that came out of left field.
At first I figured, struggling team, mid-season firing, kind of the usual. But something tells me there's more to the story.
You might be onto something. The rumor is that Saleh's firing could be tied to this whole Davante Adams situation.
Okay, hold up. Now this is getting good.
Yeah.
How are those two things even connected?
So apparently, Saleh was not on board with the idea of trading for Adams. Some are saying he thought it would mess with the team chemistry, too much reliance on Rodgers' old buddies.
So wait, you're telling me Saleh's pushing back against the trade? Maybe Rodgers pushing for it, maybe ownership's in the middle somewhere? That's some serious tension right there.
Yeah, it definitely adds a whole new layer to the story, right? And it really highlights how much power some of these star players have. If Rodgers wants Adams and ownership wants a winner, well, let's just say a coach who disagrees might not be long for that job.
Crazy how that works, huh? It's like a whole soap opera behind the scenes. All right, so big picture time.
So let's rewind for a second. Let's unpack some of the highlights from week 5, because honestly, there were some real head scratchers.
For sure.
First off, Lene Kikua's Ghost and Scrubs.
Yeah.
On fire, both riding 4-game win streaks.
It's impressive.
Talk about dominance.
It's more than just luck at this point. They're making consistently strong decisions, and it shows. You see it reflected in those accuracy scores.
Yeah, and you'll recall those scores, right? Those measure how often a team makes, like, the optimal lineup choices.
Right.
And both these teams, top of the league in that category.
Absolutely, they're playing smart.
Scrubs trade for Joe Flacco, for example.
Right.
Seemed like, I don't know, an interesting move at the time, but man, it paid off big time.
They leveraged their depth.
Yeah.
Addressed a potential weakness. You can tell they were playing the long game when they built that roster.
Exactly. And speaking of injuries and bye weeks, poor backpacks.
Oh, yeah.
They got hit hard this past week.
Tough break.
Having to start a backup quarterback because of, scheduling conflicts, bye weeks, injuries, it can really throw a wrench in your plans.
For sure. It's a great reminder that even with the best draft strategy, sometimes you got to be adaptable. You got to make the most of what you got.
No doubt. Meanwhile, Lene Kikua's ghosts, they just keep rolling. And let's be real, Jamar Chase.
Oh, yeah. Deserves a standing ovation for his performance.
Absolutely.
Single-handedly carried some teams to victory this week, wouldn't you say?
100%. Performances like that, that's why we play fantasy football, right? Those unexpected breakouts, the moments of brilliance, have you jumping out of your seat.
Speaking of unexpected, that dog pound and the kitchen matchup.
Oh, tell me about it.
Wild.
Crazy game.
The kitchen had Lamar Jackson putting up monster numbers, yet they still couldn't clinch the win.
It's true.
What's the lesson here? A high-scoring quarterback doesn't guarantee a victory.
Nope. It highlights how important a balanced roster is and strategic decision-making. Dog Pound, they might not have had the flashiest performance, but they played their matchups well, made the most of their opportunities.
I also noticed the kitchen left some serious points on the bench.
Oh, no.
It's tough to win when you've got potential game changers just, sidelined. Absolutely. Every point matters in this league, especially in a tight race for those playoff spots. Those small decisions can have a huge impact on the final outcome.
All right, let's move on. Another matchup that had everyone talking, the Brother Bowl. Tick, tick, boom, finally broke their losing streak against Break My Stride.
It's about time.
And Joe Burrow, he was the architect of that victory.
Talk about a statement game. Burrow was on fire. Showcased his ability to just dissect defenses, make those clutch throws. It's a good reminder that even when you're facing a tough opponent, one player can completely change the game.
And then we have Crow Nation, pulling off a nail-biter against Just Once Before I Die. That Monday Night Football game had us all glued to our screens.
Oh, man, that was a good one.
And got to give a shout-out to Trayvon Walker. Monster game.
3 sacks? Are you kidding me? That's the kind of defensive performance that wins you matchups.
No doubt. Walker's performance, it was a game changer for Gin Party, propelled them up the standings. So let's take a look at where everyone stands heading into Week 6. Lene Kikua's Ghost and Scrubs, tied for the lead.
Yep.
Formidable 4-1 record.
Tough to beat. It's a tight race at the top, no doubt. But what's even more interesting? That middle of the pack.
Oh, tell me about it.
A whole cluster of teams, 3-2, all going after those playoff spots.
Fighting for their lives.
And let's not forget about the kitchen.
Oh, no.
They've hit a bit of a rough patch, haven't they?
Yeah, they've dropped their last 2 games. And, as we saw with that Dog Pound matchup, they seem to struggle against those teams that can put up the points.
It's a trend worth keeping an eye on, especially, with Week 6 coming up. They're staring down any given Friday night.
Oof.
And that's a team known for their offensive firepower.
Yeah, that's not going to be an easy one.
Not at all.
Okay, speaking of Week 6, let's dive into these matchups. Because with bye weeks in full swing, there are some tough decisions ahead. I can feel it already.
Oh, absolutely.
First up, Clash of the Titans. Lene Kikua's Ghost going up against Gin Party.
The bye week bowl, they're calling it. And for good reason, too. Both teams missing some key players. But Gin Party's losses, those are significant.
I was going to say, ouch.
Stafford, Adam Jones, Tyreek Hill, all out.
Wow.
Leaves them with some serious holes to fill.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot, especially at quarterback.
Right?
With Stafford out, they're looking at Jordan Love, potential starter.
And it might get even more interesting than that. They're considering, get this, rookie Drake May for their Superflex spot.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a high-risk, high-reward situation.
That is the definition of a boom or bust play right there.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to another matchup, this one with some major playoff implications. Crow Nation, riding high after that Week 5 win, taking on Dog Pound.
Crow Nation definitely carrying some momentum, but Dog Pound,
Yeah.
they present a very unique challenge, especially quarterback.
How so?
Well, Josh Allen, he's expected back,
Okay.
which is huge for them, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But they're still without Derek Carr, out for multiple weeks.
Okay, yeah, that's tough.
So their superflex decision, absolutely critical. Do they go with Allen,
Right.
hoping he's fully recutted, ready to roll,
Right.
or do they start looking at other options?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
And let's not forget about Minshew. He's coming off a benching. Confidence might be a little shaken.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how Dog Pound handles it.
For sure. All right, next up, we've got ourselves a potential shootout on our hands. Backpacks versus Tick Tick Boom. Both teams putting up some big numbers, like averaging over 218 points per game.
If you love offensive fireworks, this is the matchup to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Backpacks, though, they're going to be praying for Anthony Richardson's return.
Understandably.
He is the key to unlocking their full potential.
For sure. But Tick Tick Boom, they've got their own set of challenges, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
Dealing with a few key injuries, even a suspension this week. Going to test their depth, that's for sure.
It's a classic case of next man up. Can they overcome these obstacles? Keep pace with that Backpacks offense.
That's the million-dollar question.
That's the big one. Okay, let's talk just once before I die. Joe Bid going up against Team CDF 2022. Joe Bid, they're getting Jalen Hurts back
Yes, they are.
from bye week, which is huge.
Huge.
But it also presents a bit of a dilemma, right?
How so?
Well, they've got an embarrassment of riches at quarterback. Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield also performing well, so who do you bench?
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Remember, this is a two-platoon league. Those superflex decisions, they're crucial.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, you've got Team CDF 2022. They've been struggling to break that 200-point mark consistently.
Yeah, they are.
Can they step up their game against, let's be honest, a very tough Joe Bid squad?
It's a tall order for
Yeah.
sure, especially with all that offensive firepower that Joe Beat has.
Right.
But anything is possible.
Right. This is fantasy football. Anything can happen. Okay, let's move on. Another intriguing matchup. Break My Stride facing off against Scrubs.
This is a tricky one. Scrubs, they're in a tough spot. Mahomes is on bye week.
Right.
So they're going to be relying on, get this, Colts Joe Flacco as their QB1.
Wow. Okay.
And if Anthony Richardson is still out, that superflex situation, it could get even more interesting.
So Joe Flacco is the key to their success this week. That's not something I thought I'd be saying this season.
Not ideal. But Scrubs, they've proven they can be resourceful. They're well coached. They make the most of their opportunities.
All right, what about Break My Stride? They're getting Justin Herbert back from injury.
Oh, absolutely. Game changer.
Right.
Herbert's return. Big boost for that offense. Big question is, how healthy is he?
Right.
If he's not 100%, they might have to turn to Deshaun Watson. And he hasn't exactly set the world on fire this season.
So a lot riding on Herbert's shoulders this week. If he can return to form, Break My Stride, they've got a real shot at taking down Scrubs. All right, last but not least, we've got the Kitchen squaring off against Any Given Friday Night.
Oof. Tough one for the Kitchen.
Yeah, I was going to say,
They're on that 2-game losing streak. And they're facing a high-scoring team in Any Given Friday Night. Their defense is going to be put to the test.
To make matters worse, the bye wimp is hitting them hard. Without key players like Kyron Williams,
Right.
Travis Kelce.
And, insult to injury, their starting kicker, Jake Moody, likely out as well.
Oh, man.
Going to have to dig deep into that bench. Hope for the best.
Definitely an uphill battle. They're going to need, like, a near-perfect performance to pull off a win this week. So many factors at play. Feels like week 6 could be a real turning point in our season, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Standings are tight, like really tight.
Tighter than ever.
And a single win or loss, that could make all the difference.
Well, yeah, especially as we, head toward the playoffs.
Exactly. What are you most curious about? Like, what do you really want to see unfold this week?
Oh, man. So many intriguing storylines. But you know what? I'm really interested to see how those teams, the ones hit hardest by the bye weeks, how they adapt.
Oh, for sure. Like, will Gin Party really, will they roll the dice with Drake May?
Right. Like, are they hoping for a miracle?
Seriously. Or will they play it safe?
Right. Will they just rely on their, remaining stars, hope those guys can carry them through?
It's a tough call.
It is. And can Dog Pound, can they figure out this whole quarterback situation?
Oh, man.
With the uncertainty surrounding Josh Allen And that superflex spot,
Huge decisions.
huge. And, those decisions could have major ripple effects.
No doubt. And we can't forget about those individual players, the ones who could just, explode, have a breakout performance,
Absolutely.
change the whole game.
Like, can Joe Flacco, can he defy all expectations? Can he lead Scrubs to another victory?
Right. Or will we see, like, a surprise hero? Someone from the waiver wire.
That's the beauty of fantasy football. It's full of surprises. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, someone comes out of nowhere, changes the game.
I love it.
And this week, with so many teams in close contention, man, those unexpected performances could have massive playoff implications.
It's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure. So as we head into week 6, with all the uncertainty, all the potential for upsets, what's one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners, as they're finalizing their lineups, getting ready for another round of, fantasy football mayhem?
I would say don't be afraid to trust your gut.
Boy, like that.
Take some calculated risks, analyze those matchups. Don't forget about the bye weeks.
Right.
And hey, don't be afraid to make that move that maybe others aren't seeing. Because remember, fortune favors the bold, especially in fantasy football.
Words to live by. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into week 6. And listeners, make sure those lineups are set because this is going to be one for the books.